Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of Melton Borough Council. Evacuation procedures. In the event of having to evacuate the chambers, please leave via one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be at hand to assist the person who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There's a legislation that allows the public to film, record, and use social media at the council meeting. This must not disrupt the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public meeting area. Please switch mobile phones to silent. Microphones. Councillors and officers are reminded to use the microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. Electronic voting. Tonight will be using an electronic voting system. This means that votes will be carried out via the microphone handset. When voting is taking place, you will be given 3 options: yes, abstain, and no. There will be 3 buttons flashing beneath the option when the voting is open. Please select your corresponding button in order to register your vote. I now pass over to Reverend Nina Austin for the prayers.
Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for the work of our local council here in Melton, and we pray for the meeting this evening. Bless our mayor, council members, and local officials with wisdom as they work to balance resources, demands, and budgets, and prioritize needs within the community. Help them to seek truth beyond partisan politics. Give them discernment to evaluate complex information accurately and so prevent rash judgments, and to inspire thoughtful deliberation. May they consult diverse perspectives while upholding righteous principles, that their choices may promote justice, peace, hope, and human flourishing. Bless all the people of Melton and the surrounding villages, and especially those who serve the community in a voluntary capacity. And as we pray for local politics here, we pray also for politicians and leaders involved in current national and international situations. We pray especially for those where there is violence and conflict, and we pray for peace and for the end of suffering. May all of us together build a world and communities in which people can feel supported and valued. Amen.
Thank you. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Addock and Arnott. Can any member wishing to give apologies for another member indicate to by raising their hand? Thank you. Anybody else? I can confirm that we have 24 members present for the meeting, and apologies have been noted. Item number 2, to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of February 2026. I propose the minutes are moved. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Clancy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cox. Do any member have any comments to make in relation to the accuracy of the meeting? Councillor Butcher.
Right. Thank you. Page 12, where the Leader of the Opposition stated the HRA was at a higher level than currently. Councillor Cox did explain that that was due to spending on the works plan that the Conservatives made, and we did honour that. Could that be added, please?
So noted, thank you. Any other member wishing to make any comments? No. In that case, we will proceed to the vote. That's carried, thank you. It's carried. Thank you. Item number 3, declaration of interest. If any member would like to indicate that they have an interest to declare, would they please do so by raising their hand? On other registered. Councillor.
Yeah, I have an interest if there is a supplementary question from Councillor Ian Atherton. I live on Chapel Street, but I've been advised that I can stay and participate in the meeting. However, as Councillor Atherton has mentioned in his question, if any discount be provided for council tenants living in the adjacent properties where I live, and for that reason only, should a supplementary question arise, I will leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen.
I'm going to make a personal interest in my own question because I mentioned the word applicant, and very, very occasionally I do put an application in planning wise. I believe it's only a personal interest because there's many applicants. Yeah.
Similarly to Councillor Gordon's position, there is no debate or vote on the issue. It's a question that's being asked, so that wouldn't amount to an interest which would engage the code.
Oh, I thought if he had a supplementary, I thought if he had a supplementary question, then I would have to leave in case anything come up to do with that. That was all.
Yeah, as there'll be no debate or vote on it, so that you're not restricted in that way. If there was a debate and a vote, you would be.
Thank you. Another registered interest in respect of Councillor Joe Olsen, it's taken on being on record for any matters relating to Leicestershire County Council.
I would also like to declare a personal interest similar to my father, but I just want it on record with relation. Thank you.
Now we come to the Mayor's announcement. Been actually quite busy. On Monday, the 2nd of March, I had the young farmers here, and it was a fantastic evening, and we had lots of fun, and it was really interesting to see how engaged they are. On Friday, the 6th of March, we had the British Pie Awards, which I found extremely interesting, and some of the combination were questionable, I think is the nicest way I can put it. It's been absolutely fantastic. One of the other things that I really, really enjoyed, we went on March the 22nd to Open Brixton Hindu Sikh temple. And we had an absolutely fantastic time. I even wore the right outfit. The only problem was the service was sitting on the floor. Sitting down wasn't a problem. Getting up afterwards was not done very delicately, I have to admit. but it was absolutely fantastic. You had a breakfast there, then you had the service, then you had lunch. You didn't need to eat for the rest of the week. So it's been absolutely fantastic week. We normally would go to the mayor's announcement. Are you doing the leader's announcement? Sorry, my mistake. The leader's announcement. Are you doing them on his behalf? Okay, so I'll pass on to.
Well, thank you for that Freudian slip, but never mind. Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm reading this on behalf of Councillor Alnett because obviously he's not here this evening, so I have volunteered to read it. So please bear with me. I've only received it recently. My apologies for being absent, and thanks to Councillor Clancy this evening for reading it. This evening is a watershed. At midnight, the government's public consultation on the alternative proposals for LGR closes. Ordinarily, in about 12 months from now, we would be entering election purdah, as this council completes its 4-year legal term, and our 28 councillors seek for re-election, or will seek re-election, or some of them will and some of them won't. Instead, and on the basis of the current timetable, we expect there to be elections in May 2027 for the new shadow unitary councils that would then become the new council from April 2028. The government has not yet confirmed what this means for MBC elections, but we would expect them to be suspended and the current council would continue for an extra handover period of 10 months. Parish elections will take place as normal. Madam Mayor, LGR is now gathering pace. There's a great deal of detail to report and to prepare for. Just a few milestones for now. I believe that all members will have received information about the government's decision yesterday regarding the 6 priority areas across our other counties. But for us, a decision is expected in July. Between the decisions in July this year and the elections to the Shadow Council in May 2027, existing councils are required to collaborate to prepare the ground for, but not tie the hands of, the new unitaries. This will include consideration of making preparations for the disaggregation or aggregation of key services to take effect from April 2028. We anticipate the structure change orders will be laid in the autumn to enable elections for shadow unitary councils May 2027. We expect those orders will be confirmed by the end of the year, and it's likely that they will include what is called a Section 24 directive. This will place an additional duty on councils like ours to have regard for the future council as well as MBC. It would also place additional stipulation on us in terms of awarding contracts and transferring assets. It will not stop us continuing business, but it will mean we have to gain approval for larger matters from either the Secretary of State or Shadow Authority. We await more details on the rules. In February 2027, we and all other existing councils will have to set budgets and council taxes for the following year to run alongside the newly established Shadow Council. After the Shadow elections, there is a 10-month period when the existing councils continue business as usual before vesting day in April 2028. During this period, collaboration changes to transfer mode so that on vesting day, the new unitaries are safe and legal. In the whole period from decision to vesting day, which is 1 year, 10 months, staff and 2P considerations figure largely. With our neighbours, we are already looking at opportunities to work share and people share to improve services, plug gaps, and so on. The nearer vesting day approaches, support for staff and resilience of existing services is important. Inevitably, some vacancies will be better filled by temporary agency staff, but this will be the case-by-case consideration. In the first year of the new unitary transfer will go up a year to the transition, as recognition and harmonisation continues, with services to the public assembly maintained. From year 2 to 4 of the new unitary transformation is expected to start with more emphasis on neighbourhood governance and improved place-based action. This is intended to emphasise the prevention agenda, which among other things could link well with the changes to care and health. Members are aware that we have an item later on in the agenda of the possibility to parish Melton Mowbray as a town council. This is outside and separate to the LGR process. Existing and new parishes will wish to influence neighbourhood governance, but it is important to emphasise this is not about council structures and committees, but positive outcomes for individual and places. Right, devolution. Creation of the new mayoral strategic authority will now be after the new unitary councils have set up, but there is still the possibility that a foundation authority could be established beforehand. For us, we want a footprint of Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland. We will report on this process when more meaningful details are available. For the moment, the 2 county councils, supported by we 7 districts and borough councils, have submitted an expression of interest creating a foundation authority. The city has taken a slightly different position. The business community is strongly supporting our approach and urging speed. Madam Mayor, as previously indicated, our approach is to inform and involve all members during this important period of preparation for the executing the change. On the 9th of May, Cabinet chairs and vice chairs and standing committees and the senior leadership team will hold an away day in Parkside to scope and prioritise our whole work programme for both business as usual and the oncoming changes. On a date to be agreed after our annual meeting in May, there will be an all-member briefing meeting to work in workshop mode. Madam Mayor, I'm sure that all of us and the public want this process to go with as much collaboration as possible while maintaining good communications and public services. For business as usual, a few quick pieces of information. And I think he's numbered them now, so I'll just go through them. Number 1, some members may have read in the latest Sunday Times magazine a favourable reference to Melton Mowbray and the Vale of Belvoir, which I was pleased to contribute to along with our splendid local Radio Eye. I will leave a copy in the members' room, so I think it's already up there. We'll continue to work with partners, especially the city and county, to promote tourism as a major driver for our local economy. A copy of the new tourism and growth plan for Leicester and Leicestershire will also be placed in the members' room. We are working on 2 significant inward investment opportunities for our borough. If there are any significant developments before our next council meeting in May, all members will be informed. Work on the Stockyard project is continuing on schedule, and following a successful routine briefing, our MP indicated that he was impressed with plans in place. These include, of course, the embryonic culture hub and potential for supporting a continued college curriculum in Melton. The culture hub has now been renamed the Culture House and links into our bid to win a £3 million grant in the Town of Culture competition. There are 2 runner-up prizes of £250,000 each. Although it is called Town of Culture, it has positive implications for the rural hinterland. It is good an opportunity to ignore. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. This initiative cannot be used to purchase the Melton Theatre. Now up for sale, members are aware that the council has encouraged and enabled local groups to register the theatre as an asset of community value. This is an independent process dependent on the ability of local groups to raise the very large resources to outbid other entries and provide a credible and sustainable business case. Separate from that process, I am pleased to report that among mainstream potential bidders, there is a real willingness to consider retaining a commercial theatre as part of their scheme, which I think we'll all agree that is brilliant news if it comes off. I have therefore also met with a small group of local business and community interests to enable that any potential new owner is fully aware of opportunities for income streams from existing local performing arts group. As I have mentioned publicly before, we are not giving up on our theatre. We are not giving up either on retaining a presence in Melton Mowbray of a college curriculum wider than performing arts. This is, of course, a decision for Loughborough College, but following a constructive meeting, I wish to record my thanks to the college for their positive attitude for the future. My thanks also to Councillor Alan Thwaites for his support. Excuse me. The dialogue with the college about the site has overlapped with discussions with the County Council about extensions to special educational needs development and provision, including post-16 training for works and life skills. This has not been successful despite the county U-turn on some existing provision. Perhaps we will return to this during LGR. Madam Mayor, work continues on the Planning Productivity Programme, and I noticed that Councillor Joe Orson has a related question on this. My apologies to him for having not responded to a similar query to me due to work pressures, absence and illness. Members will be interested to know that the invitation to the public to express views on the methods of paying for car parking is producing a good number of responses. This data will be used before Cabinet makes a final decision on the choice of equipment and systems. Then finally, Councillor Allen attended a webinar yesterday on meningitis cases in Kent. This was factual and reassuring, but not complacent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got no public questions. Before we go to questions of members, can I remind members that we are being filmed and we are not a cinema where we can eat sweeties, please. Thank you. Thank you. Questions from members. 2 questions from members have been received. The question written in response have been tabled and will ask the questionnaire if they would like to ask the supplementary questions. In accordance with procedure rules, may I remind questioners that the supplementary question must arise directly out of the reply from the original question. The first question is from Councillor Ian Atherton to the portfolio holder of Corporate Leadership Project and Housing and is related to the FlexDEF charging project. Councillor Atherton, in relation to the response to your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. So I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for the response. However, I don't believe that it actually answered the questions that I asked. Rather, it just reworded the background that I provided. The question wasn't about the policy or the requirement for EV charging capability, but was about the costs associated with the build. Can the portfolio holder please confirm just how many parking spots will be lost to the EV charging bays, as the plan submitted indicates that it will impact many more than 12, and what the associated impact on revenue this will have?
Councillor Clancy, would you?
Yes, thank you for the question, but as you realise, Councillor Allnutt isn't here this evening, so I can offer assurances that you'll receive a written response. Okay.
The second question was from Councillor Joe Olson to the Chair of Planning Committee in relation to the implementation of planning review recommendation. Councillor Alston, in relation to the response to your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Well, I'd like to thank Councillor Thwaites for his answer, particularly as I didn't actually ask the question of him. It was directed at the leader, but it's been delegated down to him. I won't say down to him, but across to him. Sorry about that. Councillor Thwaites, your answer describes the SIM as the first step in a wider improvement programme, and note that productivity has increased during this protected 12-week period, which in practice, actually, if you look at it, is over 15 weeks in reality. And that is if you take Christmas and the New Year break, so 25% extra than the 12-week break. However, parish councils, residents, stakeholders, agents, applicants will ultimately judge success not by internal process adjustments, but by whether statutory decision times are consistently achieved. Can you therefore confirm with precision whether the service is currently meeting statutory deadlines for major and non-major applications, and if not, on what date will full compliance be achieved?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, I don't have those answers with me now, so I'll commit to actually giving you those answers in writing in the near future. I will just say I think they are interested in internal processes because they are the thing that will lead to those being in place. But as I said, I'll get an answer to you in writing if that's okay. Thank you.
There are no motions or notice to hear this evening, so we move on to item number 9. I will now invite the portfolio holder for customer service, community and helping people, Councillor Carter, to present the Equality and Diversity and Inclusion Annual Report 25-26.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report, Council's Annual Qualities Directive and Treasurer's Report. It sets out how we have met our responsibilities under the public sector quality duty over the last year. The report includes respective examples that bring to life how qualities concessions are built into our directions services at work within the communities. It also provides assurance that the work is ongoing and available across the council. Members are asked to note that the report and the process outlined at 2.1 of our report. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, they're happy to second this. I think it's really good news. Yeah, so thank you very much to the officers and members involved. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. Yeah, this is this is on pages 39 and 40. It's the last paragraph on 39 and it runs into and page 40. I can read it through, but if everybody's got it in front of them, or do you want me to read it through quick? Okay, I'll just carry on. Right wing and far right groups should be called groups of concerned people. Men are illegally entering our country who cannot be vetted due to no documentation, such as passports, and we know nothing about them or their background. Officials are putting groups of these men together in houses or other accommodation where, of course, local people in those areas are concerned about the safety of their families, and quite rightly so. Therefore, the wording should be changed from right wing and far right to groups of concerned people. In addition to these two paragraphs, take out the word hate. just put crime, as it is more justifiable considering what is happening concerning illegal immigrants in England and in the UK as a whole. I also want to add that I do not advocate crime from either side. Finally, just to add that it was said to me in the town of Melton Mowbray some time ago and in Leicester that we need another Hitler. Well, I'll leave that all with you. Okay.
Councillor Higgins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I would just say is we have left-wing parties and right-wing parties. I don't think the appropriate wording is to say right-wing or left-wing. Other than that, I think the wording needs to be very carefully part of it. But in terms of what has just been spoken, to say aware that a right-wing group, because you can have a left-wing group as well. So I think the language is very important. We just need to be very careful what we're writing here. There's a complete difference from extremism from any side of what we call a political wing, left or right, but some people will identify as left wing or right wing, and that's perfectly fine. But I think the language of aware that a right wing group, which could also be perfectly legitimate, normal, everything else, we just need to make sure that the language is there. So maybe we just need to just change that part. In terms of how we're using the language, we just need to be very careful. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Higgins. Councillor Cox.
Just a quick one, Madam Mayor. This report sets out.
Sorry, sit down. Councillor Cox was in
Sorry.
front of you.
Sorry. On that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say in response to Councillor Gordon's comments, as Chair of the Community Safety Partnership, the use of the language far right groups is recognised language that's used by the police in terms of terrorist threat assessment. So it's not ideologically identifying with everybody who is opposed to immigration. The conversation around immigration is separate. These are particular groups that pose a terrorist threat to our community. So that's the term it's referred to, not people who have concerns about immigration. I also agree with what Councillor Higgins has said in terms of perhaps there's some language within the policy in terms of the word extremist groups, because as Councillor Higgins pointed out quite correctly, within the community safety sphere and policing, you could have a far left group, you could have far right, you could have ideological groups such as animal rights groups that pose a threat to us. This is about how we treat all of our community equally. But the term far right does not refer to perhaps genuine concerns by people of immigration.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I just wanted to reflect on the fact that the sections being referred to relate to a specific policy that sets out what we should be monitoring and acting on. If you read the whole section, collectively monitor relations and tensions, it goes through a whole series of issues that have been properly addressed, including the attendance of a far right group in Long Clawson on 2 years out of 3. So it's quite correctly listing the actions taken. I'll also point out, and I'm sure Councillor Gordon and others have read it, that there's a fairly lengthy dialogue here about issues relating to community tensions around the location of asylum seekers in properties and the actions rightly taken by the council. So I think suggesting that the wording needs to be changed is inappropriate. I'd also point out that the use of the word hate relates to, a legal definition. Hate crime is a thing. It's specified in the legislation, and we have a duty to actually act on and monitor hate crime. So again, the word in here doesn't need to be changed. What I would agree with is it may not be as comprehensive as it could be. And I take the point made by Councillor Higgins and to some extent by Councillor Gordon, that there are other issues that perhaps aren't reflected in here. But I think to suggest that what's here is incorrect is inappropriate.
What provision?
I think we've noted. I think we've noted the points. I think, and the portfolio holder can respond at the end of the meeting, end of the item.
May I just?
Your discretion.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge there are far right wing groups and, as we were just saying, maybe far left wing groups. In the paper on page 39, it says aware that a right wing, and that's very important, that I think something has been missed in the paper, because it is perfectly legitimate to be a right wing party or right wing group or a left wing party or a left wing group. This is about extreme parts. So that's where I'm coming from.
Noted, thank you. Anybody else before I hand back to Councillor Carter? Councillor Carter, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm grateful for all the responses, what we've had. If you want to feed back to me, whatever email, and we'll get the response back to you. Thank you very much.
I can recommend this. It has been noted and confirmed that this report has been noted to the council. Item 10. I will now invite the Chief Executive to represent the Pay Policy Statement 26/27.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Localism Act 2011 requires the council to prepare and approve a pay policy statement each year. This statement supports transparency and must set out the council's policies in relation to senior salaries and the pay multiples when compared to lower paid employees. The document mirrors that produced and published last year, and whilst it has been updated to reflect the latest salary ranges following this year's pay award, there are no significant changes to advise upon. Council are therefore asked to approve the pay policy statement, which can be found at Appendix A of your report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a proposer?
Yes, I'll propose. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate. Invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no member wishes to speak? We will now vote.
Yes, it's a vote.
We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system for either for, against, or abstain. I can confirm it's carried 24-4. Item 11. I will now invite a portfolio holder for corporation governance, environment, regular service, deputy leader, Councillor Clancy, to represent a report, consideration for community governance and review.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's me again, folks. Community governance review. I think the paper before you is self-explanatory. It outlines an initial review of the process required to establish a parish council for the current unparished area of Melton Mowbray town wards. The report mentions the role of the town council and how it can represent the local community, delivering services to meet local needs, striving to improve quality of life in the parish or town. All things extremely important to town residents, just as they are to the rural areas. To establish a town council, it would be necessary to conduct a community governance review, which would be a complex, time-consuming and often costly process, but one that is necessary if a town council is to be formed. You will see the indicative timescales on pages 79 and 80 of the report if we were to form a town council to coincide with the new councils in 2028. Group leaders have had discussions about whether to initiate a community governance review, and there was set as overall report, unless, of course, their minds have been changed since the meeting. An informal public exercise commenced 2 weeks ago, directing residents to a link on our website. We will consider a decision to undertake a formal consultation in the form of community governance review in the autumn, which is why the report is only to be noted. So I'm happy to propose to note the report at 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak or not. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just in response to thanks for the paper, Councillor Clancy. Following through, I think this is one thing we can all work on together, cross party, etc. And let's see what happens, and let's work together to ensure that we've got good local democracy when the new local government arrangements come in 2028. And I think it's something that the public, certainly the feeling we get on the ground is the public welcome it. So if on our behalf, we fully support the approach that you're taking.
Councillor Atherton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand Grantham have quite recently undergone the same exercise. I would ask the portfolio holder to liaise with her counterpart in Grantham to find out lessons learned so that we kind of don't fall into the same traps and perhaps make a better job of it. Thank you.
Councillor Joe Olsen.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, tonight we're asked to consider a report that sets out the possibility of initiating a community governance review for Melton Mowbray. The report is lengthy, but it leaves a number of fundamental questions unanswered. Questions that go directly to financial risk, legal certainty, operational capacity, and democratic legitimacy. If we are to make a sound decision later this year, we need clarity now and not later. First, the report tells us that the informal engagement currently underway will help inform future decision making, but help inform is not a threshold. What specific criteria will the council use to determine whether there is sufficient public appetite to justify initiating a CGR? Without defined measures, turnout, margin, percentage, we risk replacing evidence with interpretation. Second, the report is explicit that no financial or professional resources have been allocated for a CGR. Section 15 identifies this as a high critical risk. We're therefore contemplating a statutory process without secured funding or staffing capacity. What is the council's risk assessment for initiating a CGR under these conditions? Because unfounded statutory processes rarely end well. Third, the report warns that undertaking a CGR may now conflict with duplicate or even prejudice the local government reorganisation process. It notes that the county council and neighbouring authorities may object. How will the council ensure that a CGR undertaken now does not undermine or complicate LGR? If we misjudge the timing, we risk creating a governance tangle that the successor authority must unravel. Fourth, the report acknowledges legal uncertainty, particularly around asset transfers and the constraints of Section 24 directions. What legal advice has the council received regarding the risk of binding or financially constraining the successor unitary authority? If we proceed without clarity, we may be making commitments the new authority cannot honour or must pay to undo. Fifth, the report estimates CGR cost at £200,000, but we are not told how that figure was derived. What is the evidence base for this estimate, and what is the margin or error given the scale and complexity described? A cost estimate without methodology is not an estimate, it's a placeholder. 6. The report states that it is possible, indeed likely, that the combined effect of a new town council preset and residual special expenses would increase the financial burden on town residents. What modelling has been undertaken to quantify that increase? Residents deserve numbers and not warnings. 7th, The report identifies a £291,000 residual overhead that may fall back onto the general fund and HRA. If overheads cannot be liquidated or transferred, how will the council mitigate this impact? This is not hypothetical, it's structural. 8th, the statutory requirement is that a CGR must be completed within 12 months. The report also acknowledges that LGR will place heavy demands on officer time. What contingency plan exists if the CGR time overlaps with LGR implementation? If we cannot meet statutory deadlines, we risk procedural failure. 9th, the report states that a clear preference in the first consultation would trigger the second stage, but clear preference is undefined. What objective tests will be applied to determine whether a clear preference exists? Without a definition, we risk substituting judgment for measurement. And finally, the report acknowledges that the new unitary authority may create committees with delegated powers, structures that could overlap with or even replace functions of a town council. What assessment has been made on whether a town council would duplicate or conflict with those future arrangements? Because duplication is not devolution. Madam Mayor, these questions are not an argument against a community governance review. They are an argument for rigour, for clarity and for evidence. If we are to proceed, we must proceed with our eyes open and not simply with our hopes raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to contribute on the lines of agreeing with Councillor Ronan Brown that this is something we can all agree on in this room. I wasn't so sure listening to Councillor Orson, but I think his final comments actually clarified where it came from. I mean, just to reaffirm that the Labour Group support the principle of moving forward to explore establishing a town council, but we do recognise the importance of ensuring that whatever is established, should that be the my family would welcome my voice being cut off on a regular basis, that we do avoid unnecessary duplication of functions as we move into the LGR period. So I think the report is a starting point and a proper starting point, but I do recognise, and I do agree with Councillor Orson, that there are an awful lot of details that we have to get into, and we have to get it right. It shouldn't just be a gut feeling that there's a democratic deficit and therefore we must have a town council. If we're going to move forward, it must be establishing something that has value and has meaning and actually is relevant to the residents of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've mentioned this before to colleagues offline and outside of the chamber. It's no surprise I represent a rural ward. This isn't a political view of where I sit politically in terms of my views. However, for the Somerby ward to subsidise anything of this is a huge concern for me, because we have recreation grounds, village halls and facilities where Melton doesn't supply those. We're sort of a little bit more on our own, and other rural wards are. That's a fine thing. That all said, £200,000 is been mooted about. The concern is, what's in it for my ward in terms of subsidising for a town council to be explored and then costed, when we've got needs, flooding needs. We've got flooding needs, and so it is for my ward, which I'm duty bound to represent them for. Now, again, this isn't an argument that a town council shouldn't exist. I'm on record saying democracy costs, and it does cost. I genuinely think a town council will cost more than the special expenses, and I genuinely don't think people will thank you for adding probably doubling their special expenses value for a town council, because a lot of it goes on to administration. That's for another debate, and I'm not here to argue that. But what I will say is, I remember in April 2020, when people were just willy-nilly passing off a Section 106 agreement for the theatre, and now argue that, oh, the theatre's about to lose. That £2 million if we did not vote for that section 106 just to be written away, and I am on record of voting against that decision, and now we're all saying, well, the theatre's at risk. So let me put on notice, there is a risk here for higher council tax for Melton Mowbray people, and equally a higher taxes for rural residents who get no benefit and no say. So if we're going to go through with this, as a rural resident representing my villages, I'd like to know what's in it for us. And that's just me representing my ward on my own. And I think Councillor Holmes said something at the last council meeting. I don't think this is just always just as easy as it was. So let's just be a bit careful and make sure that every resident gets their council tax back, is what I will just warn the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I concur with my colleague over there. Yeah, I think that, of course, there used to be a town council, but we are in a very different world now. Everything costs so much. And for the rural community, it's even worse. For instance, I've been back and forwards into Melton today, twice, and then I've got to go and fill up tonight. All these things cost money. To be a little lightness to this debate, I had my uncle George Atkinson. He was on the town council many years ago. In fact, he was the chair of graveyards. He actually gave up after 2 years because he found it a dead-end job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Anybody else wishing to speak before I hand it back to Councillor Clancy? Would you like to? I'm not sure what you're going to say to that.
Well, I really don't know how to comment on that one, but yes, I totally, it's yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor Holmes. Yes, I think Councillor Orson's given us a very long list to consider, but it's not the first time we've heard that. We're all considering, which is why we're going to take it slow and steady to make sure that we get the right outcome, basically. And it's nothing that we haven't already considered. We've had lots of conversations about it, and we had conversations at our group meetings, and we had the support of your group. So yes, so please bear with us, and thank you very much for pointing those potential pitfalls out. And yes, democracy is expensive, but we do need to, well, as far as I'm concerned, I think we do need to look at every aspect on this one. And this is just an introduction, the main body of it, and the nitty-gritty will come later on in the autumn. But we just wanted you to note that the considerations at the moment. So thank you very much, everybody, for your comments.
Thank you. The recommendations are to note, and I confirm that the report has been noted by the council. And I am pleased to announce that the council meeting finishes at 28 minutes past, no, not 24 minutes past 7.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Mayor of Borough of Melton, Councillor Siggy Atherton.